They're here, and they're getting smarter. How soon before they're everywhere? Coming up on Featuring the Future. Also, will the provision of the death penalty for rapists prove to be a deterrent? Why does the opposition want the Chief Justice of India impeached? Just what is impeachment? It's Monday, April 23rd. Placards like these are fairly common at protests held after a particularly gruesome case of rape is reported. It characterizes the response of an enraged but helpless people. Governments under fire for failing to protect its most vulnerable often respond with populist but not necessarily well thought out legislative solutions. First, let's look at what the ordinance amending the law allowing for the death penalty to be imposed on child rapists exactly says. In case of the rape of a girl under 12 years of age, the minimum punishment would be 20 years in prison or imprisonment for life. The maximum would be the death penalty. In case of the gang rape of a girl below 12 years of age, the minimum punishment would be life in prison and the maximum the death penalty. If the victim is over 12 and under 16 years of age, the minimum punishment has been increased from 10 years to 20 years, extendable to life in prison. The punishment for gang rape of a child over 12 and under 16 years of age would be life in prison. For the offence of rape of those above 16, the minimum punishment has been increased from rigorous imprisonment of 7 years to 10, extendable to life in prison. The ordinance states there will be no provision for anticipatory bail of those accused of rape or the gang rape of a girl under 16 years. Now, will the provision of the death penalty for child rapists prove to be a deterrent? The National Crime Records Bureau data and those that have studied the working of the criminal justice system in child rape cases believe it is unlikely to be. Of the 6,626 cases of child rape in which trial was completed in 2016, as many as 4,757 resulted in acquittals, a conviction rate of a mere 28.2%. Of the 38,947 cases registered, in 36,859, which is 94% of the cases, the accused was known to the victim. This includes grandfather, father, close family member, other relative or neighbor, which leads lawyers to argue that imposing the death penalty will only further deter the victim from reporting the crime. If the offender is a close family member, there would be added pressure on the victim to either not report the case at all or turn hostile from within the family. Others have argued that in light of the death penalty, there is no guarantee that the rapist would not commit murder just to silence those they rape. In fact, the Justice Verma Committee set up in the wake of the outcry over the Nirbhaya case and tasked with recommending legal reforms to deal with sexual offences had ruled against recommending the death penalty. Now, the ordinance signed by President Kovind on Sunday also sets a time limit for investigations and completion of trial at 2 months. But such stipulations already find mention in the existing law for the protection of children from sexual offences. They are not implemented though. The trial takes years, a fact borne out by this column. The cases pending trial as per the National Crime Records Bureau data are at 90%. In an unprecedented move, 7 opposition parties, led by the Congress, have moved a notice for the impeachment of the Chief Justice of India, Deepak Mishra. The notice for impeachment, signed by 64 members of Parliament, accuses the Chief Justice of failing to protect the independence of the judiciary from executive interference, as also misuse of authority. Now, what has prompted the raising of questions against the Chief Justice? In January this year, 4 senior-most Supreme Court judges went public, again an unprecedented move, and accused Chief Justice Mishra of selectively assigning cases to judges of his choice without rational basis.
I don't want another 20 years later some very wise man in this country blame that Chalameshwar, Ranjan Gogoi, Madan Lokur and Kurian Joseph sold their souls.
Among the more contentious matters was this. In November 2017, a bench headed by Justice Chalameshwar admitted a petition seeking an independent SIT probe into what is referred to as the Medical College bribery scam. The CBI, which investigated the case, had arrested a former judge of the Odisha High Court for allegedly taking bribes from medical colleges by assuring favourable orders from courts. Now, in the Supreme Court, the petitioners during the hearing demanded that since a 3-judge bench headed by Chief Justice Deepak Mishra had in the past dealt with the case of Prasad Education Trust, which runs the college in question, propriety demanded that he stay away from taking any judicial or administrative decisions related to the matter. Justice Chelameshwar passed an order for the setting up of a constitution bench to hear the case. Meanwhile, the Chief Justice set up another bench that annulled Justice Chelameshwar's order, stating that the Chief Justice is the master of the roster and he alone has the prerogative to constitute the benches of the court and allocate cases. Now, back to the question of impeachment. What does the process involve? The procedure is detailed in the Judges Inquiry Act of 1968. Depending on which House of Parliament the motion is presented in, the Lok Sabha Speaker or the Rajya Sabha Chairman admits the motion. A 3-member committee is set up to look into the allegations. The committee includes the Chief Justice of India or another Supreme Court judge, a High Court Chief Justice, and one other jurist selected by the Chairman or the Speaker. The committee then needs to frame definite charges on which the investigation should be led against the judge. The judge in question needs to be informed of the charges and is then given time to submit a written defense. Following an investigation, if the committee finds there are grounds to remove the judge, then the matter has to be taken up for consideration in the house in which it was introduced. That motion has to be accepted by a special majority. The process has to be repeated in the other house, and if it still passes muster, then it has to be presented to the President for approval. Now, no judge in India has been impeached so far, but impeachment proceedings have been initiated against these judges in the past. Political parties in Tamil Nadu, led by the DMK, will hold protests across the state to demand that the centre form the Kaveri Water Management Board immediately. Let's try and understand the latest flashpoint in what has been a water dispute that has lasted over a century. In February this year, the Supreme Court ruled on the matter, making a few changes to the Kaveri River Water Tribunal's final award of 2007. The court directed the centre to form a scheme to implement the award within 6 weeks. The Modi government failed to do so, earning a rebuke from the Supreme Court. Here's the politics that is seemingly framing the centre's response. Karnataka votes on the 12th of May, and the Congress government there has rejected the idea of a Kaveri Water Management Board or scheme to oversee the sharing of the water in the Kaveri Basin. Why so? Karnataka does not want to give up control of the Kaveri water. When set up, the Kaveri Water Management Board will function independently to implement the water sharing arrangement by forming the Kaveri Water Regulation Committee, which in effect means Karnataka won't be able to deny water to other riparian states claiming poor rainfall, something it has been doing in the last few years. So Karnataka opposing the formation of the board has forced the hand of the BJP-led government at the centre in the light of impending elections. This in turn has led to political parties in Tamil Nadu accusing the centre of betraying the state. The Supreme Court has asked the centre to file its draft scheme on the implementation of its order by the 3rd of May. Now, you might not want Iron Man's suit, but we're sure you'd like a bit of Jarvis. And maybe you can soon. Robots are everywhere these days.
Do you want me to sit?
Case in point, Finland, where a new teaching assistant, Elias, can speak 23 languages and even dance to Gangnam Style. He can't detect when a student is lying about homework, but can understand each student's learning needs. Just like Pepper in Japan, who understands the needs of the elderly. Japan, with the world's oldest population, will be short of 370,000 caregivers by the year 2025. Enter AI that can help the elderly get out of bed, into a wheelchair, ease them into bathtubs, help them walk, and even administer medication. 8% of nursing homes are already catching up. And so is India. Chennai's robot restaurant has waiters who are, no points for guessing, robots. Guests place their orders on iPads and they are served efficiently. The four can also understand Tamil, don't charge overtime, and can guide you to the table with a view. But will robots disrupt livelihoods and cause a robocalypse? Can't answer that, but maybe our batteried friends could be programmed into doing our tax filings, or bed making, or, well, think of the possibilities while we take a break and get back to you tomorrow.